A suspicious spike in Tesla sales has experts in the industry scratching their heads. It started with a deadline in January for Ottawa's rebate.
$43 million in EV rebates frozen overnight. But this wasn't just a routine budget hold. It was a full-blown political takedown. What once looked like a masterclass in business strategy from Tesla is now being picked apart by investigators, ridiculed by government officials, and burned in the court of public opinion. And the wildest part? It all unraveled in just one weekend. This isn't just another corporate misstep. You're witnessing a global powerhouse lose its grip. So what turned Tesla into public enemy number one in Canada? How did Elon Musk go from green tech hero to facing accusations of market manipulation? And what if this is just the beginning? By the time this video ends, you'll see why Tesla's fall from grace could reshape the future of electric vehicles, and why the next twist might catch the entire auto industry off guard. The weekend that sparked it all. In the days before the rebate freeze, Tesla was riding high, announcing a jaw-dropping 8,753 electric vehicles sold in a single weekend. That's one car every 30 seconds. On paper, a headline-worthy triumph. But that figure didn't just raise eyebrows, it set off alarm bells. Industry insiders, especially within the Canadian Automobile Dealers Association, questioned how any car maker, even Tesla, could rack up such explosive sales numbers so quickly. Whispers started circulating. Was Tesla stockpiling orders? Were they reclassifying transactions to max out government incentives? Behind the scenes, Ottawa launched a quiet investigation. Officials combed through dealership records, buyer profiles, and transaction times. What they found painted a murky picture. Multiple applications tied to the same addresses, unusual financing setups, and purchase timestamps just minutes apart. Tesla stood firm, insisting every sale was legitimate. But to regulators, the red flags were piling up. What was once a celebration now looked like a calculated push to drain incentive funds before they disappeared. Windsor, a longtime champion of Canada's auto innovation, suddenly found itself at the center of a political and economic storm. Was it a hustle or a witch hunt? Some buyers felt manipulated, used as pawns in a last-minute numbers game. Others believed Tesla was being unfairly targeted by an overreaching government. Either way, the story shifted. This wasn't a victory lap. It was the opening chapter of a much larger battle over how EV programs are used, and potentially abused. In the aftermath, economic analysts began to speculate. Was this rush Tesla's final grab at a rapidly dwindling rebate pool? If they knew the funds were nearly gone, they may have seen an opportunity to secure tens of millions in subsidies by pushing through sales in one frantic burst. But the plan backfired. Instead of locking in a windfall, Tesla walked straight into a federal investigation. No matter how many cars they moved off the lot, the entire strategy looked doomed once Ottawa's inspectors showed up. The fallout and the bigger picture. As Tesla scrambled to contain the fallout, many started asking a deeper question. Was this really about cars and incentives? Or was it political retaliation? Some speculated it was payback for former US President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff moves. Others suggested Prime Minister Mark Carney was using this moment to shield Canada from foreign pressure. In truth, the answer was both simpler and more complex. Canada's EV rebate program was originally designed to encourage a transition to zero-emission vehicles, a cornerstone of the country's climate strategy. But after Trump's trade war escalated, the rebate system became a new kind of battlefield. Insiders revealed heated cabinet discussions where Tesla's rebate claims were scrutinized line by line. Carney, known for his no-nonsense economic approach, decided to shut the whole thing down, protecting Canadian taxpayer money while sending a clear message to Washington. If the US was going to punish Canadian auto exports with 25% tariffs, Canada had every right to protect its own programs from being exploited by an American automaker. The friendly cross-border dynamic began to crack. Carney eventually made it official, flanked by advisors, announcing that no company, Tesla included, would be allowed to take advantage of Canada's federal programs. His words didn't sound like a simple policy correction. They sounded like a warning shot in a growing trade conflict. And just like that, Tesla went from market leader to political lightning rod. From green pioneer to political flashpoint, Tesla's Canadian crisis. Once celebrated as a symbol of eco-friendly innovation, Tesla has now been recast, at least in the eyes of some, as an opportunistic foreign entity with unsettling ties to Washington. Media reactions were divided. Was Mark Carney standing up for accountability, or was he settling a personal score? One thing was clear: electric vehicle rebates had become more than just environmental policy. They had transformed into a potent geopolitical weapon. As tensions mounted, major US news outlets began probing deeper, questioning whether political motives were steering Carney's decision. Some analysts argued Canada was drawing a hard line, showing it wouldn't be pushed around by Trump-era aggression. Others saw a shrewd strategist at work, positioning Canada as a global leader in ethical, sustainable funding. Either way, Tesla had stumbled into a firestorm. What was meant to be a clean energy success story now reflected a tangled mess of international politics, regulatory pride, and national identity. The EV rebate program, once simply a tool to guide consumers toward cleaner transportation, was now a symbol of sovereignty, leverage, and resistance in a growing trade war. The bigger picture comes into focus. As the political dust began to settle, a larger narrative started to take shape. This wasn't just about electric cars anymore. It was about influence, power, and perception. Tesla's history with incentives. A pattern emerges. Even before this latest scandal, Tesla's approach to government subsidies had raised eyebrows. Back in 2019, the company launched a bare-bones version of the Model 3, priced just below Canada's rebate eligibility threshold. The car had reduced range and features, but the move unlocked a massive influx of incentive money. Critics called it a compliance car scam, accusing Tesla of gaming the system for financial gain. Fans, however, applauded Elon Musk's creativity, seeing him as a boundary pusher who knew how to beat the system. By 2025, Tesla's methods had grown even more aggressive. Product launches and sales pushes were carefully timed to hit just before rebate deadlines, flooding the market to capture maximum benefits. It worked, until it didn't. The suspicious weekend sales surge triggered a full-scale investigation in Canada. Now regulators are digging through records, connecting the dots, and uncovering what some say is a pattern of exploiting programs originally built for the public good. This isn't just about one rebate freeze. It's about Tesla's reputation worldwide. For a brand built on innovation and disruption, the growing concern now is whether those strengths have morphed into something more cynical. Where's the line between clever strategy and outright exploitation? If Tesla keeps playing close to the edge, short-term wins could collapse under long-term scrutiny. The compliance car controversy might be the start of a broader reckoning. A global ripple effect behind closed doors. Regulators in other countries are taking notes. If Tesla pushed the limits in Canada, could they have done the same elsewhere? And if so, what comes next? For government agencies around the world, Canada's swift investigation has become a case study. How to identify abuse, enforce accountability, and protect taxpayer-funded environmental programs from being gamed. As part one of this saga draws to a close, one thing is certain. Canada's clampdown may have just knocked over the first domino. Tariffs, trade wars, and Tesla's tipping point. And then another shockwave hit. In a late afternoon announcement that rattled the entire North American auto industry, Donald Trump imposed a 25% tariff on vehicles imported from Canada. His goal? To bring manufacturing jobs back to the US and reduce dependency on foreign supply chains. But the move quickly backfired. Canadian officials saw the tariff as an economic attack. Within days, anxiety swept through parts suppliers, dealerships, and union halls. There was real fear that rising production costs would shut down factories and cost thousands of jobs. And it wasn't just Canada that felt the squeeze. The modern car industry is deeply interconnected. American-made vehicles rely on Canadian parts. A sedan built in Michigan might include a transmission from Ontario, electronics from Manitoba, and steel from Saskatchewan. With Trump's new tariff, Every one of those parts became a financial risk. Prices shot up almost overnight. Dealerships struggled. Small businesses saw profits shrink. In Ohio and Michigan, factory workers lost overtime hours, while service shops slashed hours or shut down entirely. Dealerships offered last-minute discounts just to clear backlogged inventory. Despite these desperate efforts, nothing could patch the growing rift the tariffs created. And though US officials defended the move, the damage was done. A new era of accountability? Tesla's fallout in Canada could become the precedent for a broader wave of regulatory action across borders. If this crisis proves anything, it's that the lines between innovation, regulation, and politics are blurrier than ever, and every automaker is now on notice. Whether you're a fan of Tesla or a critic, the message is clear. The age of unchecked disruption might be coming to an end. And what started as a sales spike could end up rewriting the entire rulebook for the electric vehicle industry. A crisis Tesla didn't see coming. At first, it seemed like just a temporary hiccup, but consumer confidence took a nosedive almost instantly. Trade analysts compared the fallout to a natural disaster, except this time, the damage was entirely self-inflicted. By the end of the second week, Canada was already preparing its counterattack. Tesla, caught in a growing rebate war with Canadian regulators, became the first high-profile casualty. But behind the scenes, industry insiders whispered a warning. Tesla wouldn't be the last. Meanwhile, as Trump publicly doubled down, warning other nations to stay out, Ottawa was holding an emergency meeting that would shift the entire story. The Cabinet Emergency, Canada's late-night answer to an economic attack. Under the dim lights of Parliament's corridors, Prime Minister Mark Carney gathered his top ministers for an emergency session. Trump's sudden tariff announcement had blindsided the country, and now the economic data in front of them painted a grim picture. Plunging exports, rattled investors, and dire forecasts for the months ahead. Carney didn't mince words. Trump's move, he declared, was a direct assault on Canada's economy. The country needed to act fast, not just to protect jobs, but to show the world it would not be intimidated. Transport officials shared troubling reports. Tesla's aggressive rebate push, combined with Trump's tariff strategy, was strangling the country's auto sector. Thousands of jobs, from Windsor to Vancouver, were at immediate risk. The room grew tense as ministers debated their options, push back hard, or try to de-escalate through diplomacy. By midnight, they had made their choice. For decades, Canada had leaned on diplomacy. But Carney said that era was over. Tesla would be cut off from all federal incentives, and new restrictions would hit key US automakers that relied on Canadian raw materials. One senior official summed it up. If they want a trade war, they'll get one, but on our terms. By sunrise, the retaliation plan was finalized. It wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. Markets react. A local dispute goes global news of Canada's bold countermeasures spread fast, and the impact was immediate. Markets from Frankfurt to São Paulo trembled. What had begun as a disagreement between two allies was spiraling into a full-scale global trade conflict. International allies rally behind Canada. The international response was swift and vocal. The European Union blasted Trump's tariffs, calling them reckless and dangerous. EU leaders pledged support for Canada and hinted at coordinated penalties on American goods. In Brazil, officials criticized Trump's isolationist tactics, warning that no country was safe if even Canada was being targeted. Although Brazil wasn't a major US car exporter, its auto suppliers began talks with Canada and Europe, looking to sidestep the US altogether. That move set off alarm bells worldwide, threatening to reshape entire global supply chains. Mexico's reaction was sharp and strategic. Having clashed with the US before, Mexican leaders saw an opportunity for solidarity. Talks quickly began around forming a new regional trade alliance, one grounded in fairness and less dependent on US influence. Business leaders hosted summits to explore rerouting supply chains through Canada and Central America to avoid US tariffs altogether. Auto industry on edge. Across the Atlantic, European automakers voiced their alarm. Their factories and profits were tightly bound to North American stability, and any disruption risked billions in losses. Some companies even revised their 2025 forecasts, refusing to gamble on an increasingly unpredictable US trade policy. Headlines in Paris and Berlin didn't call it protectionism. They called it provocation. And as Canada built a growing coalition of support, Tesla's situation kept deteriorating. Tesla's slide into chaos. One of Tesla's most promising markets had suddenly turned hostile. And as the world watched, Elon Musk's empire began to feel the pressure. Once celebrated as a beacon of green innovation, Tesla's reputation took a major hit when Canada shut the door on its rebate program. Investors took note. If one of the most EV-friendly nations in the world could freeze out Tesla, what might other governments do? The stock market reacted fast. Tesla shares tumbled for consecutive days, wiping out billions in value. European financial institutions downgraded their forecasts, citing the rising uncertainty from North America. In Asia, markets followed suit, and rumors began swirling that major institutional investors were scaling back their Tesla positions. A turning point for Tesla and the EV industry. What started as a bold sales weekend had snowballed into an international crisis. Now, Tesla wasn't just facing scrutiny, it was facing a global reckoning. And for the rest of the automotive world, the message was loud and clear. The age of unchecked incentives and border-blind business is over. The road ahead just got a lot more complicated. Musk's misstep: how politics sparked a Tesla meltdown. As markets grew jittery from escalating political tensions, investors were already on edge. Elon Musk's public statements only made things worse. Instead of calming the storm, his lengthy social media posts criticizing Canadian policies fanned the flames. He accused Canada of acting out of political revenge, retaliation, he said, triggered by Trump's tariff war. But for traders already spooked by the volatility, Musk's commentary wasn't reassuring. Some began to see him not as a visionary, but as someone too deeply entangled in Washington's high-stakes political games. The brand that once stood for the future suddenly seemed mired in old-world drama. Skeptics in the financial world, especially short sellers, saw their moment. They doubled down, amplifying negative sentiment and cashing in as Tesla's stock tumbled. The ripple effect across the EV industry. But Tesla wasn't the only one feeling the pressure. Other electric vehicle startups, from California to China to Europe, felt the aftershocks. As government incentives began to look more like tools of political leverage than stable support, analysts and investors grew cautious. Funding rounds that had seemed guaranteed just weeks earlier started falling through. Boardrooms filled with uncertainty. If Tesla, an industry titan, could fall this fast, who was really safe from becoming collateral damage in a geopolitical standoff? And still, Canada held firm. Every move made by Prime Minister Mark Carney and his cabinet suggested they had no intention of backing down. The question Tesla now faced wasn't just about overcoming a rebate ban. It was whether the company could adapt fast enough to survive a broader trade upheaval sparked by Trump's tariffs. Signs pointed to something bigger on the horizon, a crisis that extended far beyond a single company. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the button to support us for free and stay up to date on stories reshaping the future of tech and trade. The Europe crash. Tesla's reputation implodes abroad. The trouble didn't stop at Canada's border. What started as a quiet controversy in Germany soon erupted into a continent-wide crisis. It began when Elon Musk appeared to publicly align himself with a far-right political figure. European media seized on the moment, and suddenly, headlines across the continent were filled with questions about Tesla's values. By 2025, the narrative had shifted. Investigative reports detailed Musk's associations with controversial groups, painting him as a CEO who blurred the lines between business ambition and political ideology. For many European consumers who had once embraced Tesla as the symbol of modern, responsible innovation, it felt like a betrayal. This wasn't just about a product. It was about trust. consumer watchdogs in the UK began pushing for formal reviews of Tesla's labor practices and corporate ethics. Petitions emerged demanding that Parliament investigate whether foreign automakers were influencing domestic politics. Critics argued that a company leading the Green Revolution should also stand for social progress, not cozy up to political extremism. Tesla loyalists pushed back, claiming Musk's personal views shouldn't tarnish the company's technological achievements. But the damage was already done. Sales fell, trust slipped, the shine was gone. In major cities like Berlin, Paris, and London, Tesla's sales began to dip. No advertising campaign could undo the growing public skepticism overnight. Germany's powerful automotive industry, always quick to protect its turf, pounced on the opportunity. Domestic EV brands began highlighting their ability to deliver performance and luxury without the baggage of a controversial CEO. To make matters worse, Chinese EV makers were surging into the European market with lower-priced models, quickly capturing attention in regions where Tesla had once dominated. For the first time, Tesla's dominance felt fragile, not because of one competitor, but because of a wave of challengers. The European backlash wasn't just a PR nightmare, it was a warning. The fortunes of even the most innovative automakers could collapse if they were seen as meddling in sensitive political or cultural issues. If Tesla wanted to rebuild goodwill, it would take more than a new model or flashy announcement. It would take a fundamental shift in approach. But that looked increasingly unlikely, especially as another storm was brewing, one that was far more personal and even closer to home. Elon Musk's political ties backfire, and Tesla pays the price. Elon Musk had long styled himself as a disruptive genius who could bend powerful institutions to his will. His relationship with Donald Trump was no secret. Musk saw it as a strategic move. Access to the White House could mean faster approvals and front-page exposure for Tesla's boldest ideas. But in 2025, that relationship came back to haunt him. When Musk publicly endorsed Trump's controversial tariffs against Canada, meant to correct trade imbalances, he crossed a line for many. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Just as Canada was announcing its ban on Tesla's access to electric vehicle rebates, Musk's public support for the tariffs made it look like he was actively siding against one of Tesla's key markets. For many observers, the dots connected too easily. The perception that Musk had chosen political loyalty over international business sense triggered a broader consumer revolt. Musk's political gambit backfires, and Tesla pays the price. Elon Musk's open endorsement of protectionist trade policies and Canada's swift retaliation was too big for the media to ignore. Almost overnight, Tesla went from being the darling of clean energy to a symbol of political favoritism and corporate overreach. Commentators across North America began pointing out the obvious. Musk's repeated dives into polarizing political waters were beginning to undercut Tesla's core image as a forward-thinking, innovation-first company. The backlash intensifies. Community leaders in several Canadian cities publicly voiced their frustration, accusing Tesla of fueling a trade war that directly threatened local jobs. Social media exploded with calls to boycott Tesla vehicles, while influential voices painted Musk as a billionaire more interested in personal power than cross-border cooperation. The public perception began shifting fast. Within days, brand sentiment scores across North America plummeted. Many potential buyers hesitated, wondering if Tesla, so deeply tied to controversial politics, was still a smart investment. To make matters worse, international media reignited coverage of Musk's past political endorsements, particularly those seen as leaning toward fringe ideologies. In Europe, that portrayal began sticking, with critics depicting Musk as increasingly out of touch with everyday consumers. Skeptics who had long questioned Tesla's promises found themselves with a growing, attentive audience. Meanwhile, Tesla's stock became more volatile, hammered by a non-stop wave of negative headlines. Musk's attempts to defend himself on social media only added fuel to the fire. His posts felt reactive, not reassuring, adding to the growing sense that the CEO's political risks were undermining the very company he built. But the clearest sign of real trouble wasn't in boardrooms or on Wall Street. It was what was unfolding on the ground in Canada. Protests, vandalism, and boycotts. the anti-Tesla movement begins. What started as a simple act of vandalism, red paint splashed across a Tesla showroom window in Ontario, quickly escalated into a nationwide protest movement. Social media posts showed Tesla vehicles with slashed tires, keyed doors, and protest signs taped across windshields. At first, it seemed random, but it soon became clear this was coordinated. The protests were fueled by outrage at Musk, at the US-Canada trade tensions, and at what many saw as Tesla's attempts to manipulate Canadian policies for personal and corporate gain. In Montreal, protesters staged a sit-in at a Tesla delivery center, blocking entrances and disrupting scheduled test drives. Their message was sharp: no tax dollars for your political gains. At the same time, traditional car dealerships began subtly steering customers away from Tesla, hinting that investing in the brand had become a risky move. Even people who had never paid much attention to trade policy began to question whether Tesla was still the right choice. Organizers framed the movement not as anti-technology, but anti-corporate interference. They accused Musk of trying to sway sovereign policy in Tesla's favor, even if it meant hurting Canadian workers. This wasn't just student activism either. Among the protesters were laid-off auto workers, angry that Musk and Trump's policies had put their jobs in jeopardy. College students also joined in, disillusioned by Tesla's fading image as a beacon of environmental progress. The message was clear. Tesla was no longer seen purely as a sustainability leader. It had become a flashpoint in a broader diplomatic and social conflict. And the protests kept gaining steam. Organizers vowed to continue rolling boycotts until Tesla formally distanced itself from Trump's combative stance toward Canada. Though critics dismissed some of the protests as impulsive or theatrical, the scale of the backlash spoke volumes. Cities called for investigations. The public outcry grew. What began as consumer dissatisfaction had morphed into a full-blown rebellion. Tesla, once seen as a climate hero, was now being rejected by the very people who once championed it. Tesla's US sales decline, and China's EV giants move in. As Canada erupted in protest, a separate crisis was quietly unfolding in Tesla's own backyard. For years, Tesla enjoyed a strong foothold in the American market, especially in places like California and New York. Loyal fans, high-profile visibility, and Elon Musk's star power kept the momentum going. But by 2025, the cracks were showing. Sales data revealed noticeable dips, just as domestic competitors began to roll out new electric vehicle models with updated features and competitive prices. Consumers who once saw Tesla as the only option now had choices, and they were starting to explore them. Even more concerning, Chinese EV brands, once dismissed as budget alternatives, were gaining ground fast. Their quality was improving, their tech was catching up, and their pricing was aggressive. In states like Texas and Florida, local dealerships began reporting a steady rise in interest for Chinese-made EVs. The floodgates were opening, and Tesla was no longer the undisputed leader. The bigger picture. All these challenges, trade wars, political backlash, sliding sales, and new global competitors, painted a sobering picture for Tesla. What once seemed like an unstoppable force in the EV revolution was now facing a perfect storm of political, social, and market turbulence. Tesla's future would depend not just on innovation, but on whether it could adapt, rebuild trust, and distance itself from the controversy swirling around its founder. Because in this new chapter of the electric vehicle race, technology alone won't be enough to lead the charge. Interest in electric vehicles from newcomers outside of Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Joe Electric is on the rise, with Chinese automakers like BYD, Build Your Dreams, and NIO offering sleek designs and competitive range at prices significantly lower than Tesla's typical price point. Consumers who once saw Tesla as the only option for top-tier performance and cutting-edge design are now considering whether Chinese EVs could deliver similar style and quality at a far more affordable cost. American auto experts point to a mix of factors that are creating challenges for Tesla. The political fallout over issues in Canada has hurt the company's image, while Elon Musk's ongoing public battles over trade and tariffs have made some potential buyers wary of potential price increases or disruptions in the supply chain. Meanwhile, Chinese EV manufacturers have capitalized on the uncertainty, stepping in with proactive marketing campaigns and direct-to-consumer test drives, showcasing their vehicles as legitimate contenders rather than mere knockoffs. The most painful realization for Tesla is that, for the first time in years, its share of the US electric vehicle market is shrinking. New government regulations demand more affordable clean cars, and the Chinese brands are ready to meet that demand. Tesla, distracted by damage control on multiple fronts, seems to be falling behind. Analysts who once praised Musk's bold moves are now questioning if the company has stretched itself too thin by engaging in unnecessary battles, rather than focusing on its product strategy, as American consumers shift toward alternatives. The harsh reality is that Tesla's once unstoppable momentum is no longer assured. With global pushback mounting, the company's position feels more vulnerable than ever. Tesla versus Canada. A legal battle ahead. Elon Musk is no stranger to controversy, but now he faces a new kind of challenge: the courtroom. Tesla finds itself locked out of Canada's electric vehicle rebate program after the Canadian government froze millions of dollars in incentives that had previously been a reliable financial boost. Musk has hinted at the possibility of taking legal action to recover those funds, but the path ahead is anything but clear. Canada's decision is backed by claims of system abuse and manipulation, and international trade law tends to favor established agreements. Legal experts believe that proving Canada acted in bad faith or violated trade deals will be a significant challenge. Tesla would need solid evidence to counter the allegations, all while navigating the complexities of international trade law. A long legal battle could damage Tesla's brand, alienate customers, and distract from its core goal of expanding the EV market. However, Musk's fighter mentality means that if there's even a small chance of success, он может преследовать его. But as the legal teams prepare their case, the question remains: can Tesla win this fight? The fall of Tesla's global EV leadership. Once a unifying force in the electric vehicle industry, Tesla now finds itself sidelined as the EV market continues to evolve. In recent years, the electric vehicle sector has seen greater collaboration between automakers, working together to lower costs, standardize charging infrastructure, and make electrification more mainstream. Tesla, once the leader of this movement, is now increasingly isolated. As Tesla grapples with frozen rebates and legal challenges, competitors like Ford, BYD, and Volkswagen are moving quickly. These companies are forming strategic partnerships, launching innovative new models, and expanding their market share. They are also pushing ahead with joint ventures focused on battery development and securing critical materials, all while building charging networks that rival Tesla's once dominant supercharger system. Meanwhile, many of Tesla's competitors have gained the trust of governments around the world, securing incentives and subsidies that are now out of Tesla's reach. It's not just a matter of financial loss. Tesla's reputation as the industry leader is eroding. What was once a spirit of collaboration in the EV sector now seems to belong to Tesla's competitors. Former allies have moved on, leaving Musk and his company to navigate an increasingly competitive and hostile landscape. The central question is no longer about how Tesla will recover, but whether it can ever regain its former prominence in a market that has outgrown it. Canada's new industrial plan, a future without Tesla. With Tesla now out of the picture, Canada is moving forward with bold initiatives to solidify its position in the green energy economy. The removal of Tesla from the electric vehicle landscape opens up new opportunities for other manufacturers to fill the void, setting the stage for a future where Tesla is no longer the driving force behind the push for electric vehicles. Canada's incentive programs go beyond regulatory adjustments. They are part of a broader strategy to reshape the country's industrial future. By focusing on domestic electric vehicle production, renewable energy projects, and advanced manufacturing technologies, Canada is carving out a new path that doesn't depend on Tesla's dominance. The government has made it clear that the goal is to nurture local brands, build sustainable supply chains, and attract new players who align with Canada's clean energy vision. Efforts are already underway with investments in battery recycling, renewable energy infrastructure, and training programs for the next generation of green industry workers. Various provinces are introducing their own incentives to encourage the growth of locally produced electric vehicles, gradually reducing reliance on a single global brand. This isn't just about sidelining Tesla. It's about establishing a resilient, independent industrial base that can thrive in an ever-changing global economy. As Canada's new plan takes shape, the absence of Tesla isn't just a void to fill. It's an opportunity to reshape the green industry on Canada's own terms. The end of Tesla's golden age. Tesla's golden age may be coming to an end. Once at the forefront of a global energy revolution, the company now faces a future filled with uncertainty. From frozen incentives in Canada to increasing competition in Europe and China, the challenges Tesla faces signal a major turning point. Investors who once believed in Tesla's unstoppable dominance are now questioning its ability to remain resilient. With market share shrinking, rising supply chain costs, and growing regulatory challenges, Tesla is no longer the invincible force it once seemed to be. But if anyone can lead a comeback, it's Elon Musk. Known for his determination, Musk is the kind of leader who doesn't back down from a challenge. The question, however, is whether the road ahead will demand more than even he can handle. The automotive landscape is more competitive than ever, with rivals who were once behind now leading the charge in technology, production efficiency, and government backing. While Tesla's innovative spirit and loyal customer base remain valuable assets, they might not be enough to carry the company through the challenges ahead. The end of Tesla's golden age doesn't mean the company's end. It could simply mark the beginning of a more measured and strategic Tesla, one that will need to fight for every bit of market share, rebuild trust with consumers, and find new ways to lead in an industry that is rapidly evolving beyond its original pioneer. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.